Hi there, Laura here from Get Organized HQ, and I want to have a heart-to-heart with you about something that's been on my mind for a while, and I think this might help some of you because this is something that I have personally experienced. So one thing that we talk about a lot when it comes to cleaning, organizing, time management, productivity, all the things that I cover here on this channel is how the goal of it is to help our lives run more smoothly and to really help us experience less stress and more peace. That's the goal, because when everything is kind of out of control, we don't know where anything is, everything's a total mess, obviously that's incredibly stressful and that's not fun, and we don't want that. However, sometimes I have found myself, and you may have done this too, going too far in the other direction. So my goal is to avoid stress. So if I add something to my life and I feel more stressed, I think that thing is bad. And that may not be the case. So let me give you an example. Recently, I wanted to take better care of my physical health. I'd had a lot of health problems. I had a surgery, I'll link to that video below if you want the whole story, that really helped improve my health situation, and I desperately, if there's anything that I personally can do, I know some things are completely out of my control, to prevent myself from being in a really bad health state again, I absolutely want to do that. So I was very, very motivated to make some changes. And when it comes to health, most of us know what we need to do. Most of us probably know we need to eat better, eat more fruits and vegetables, and that we also need to incorporate movement and exercise. So whether that just be, going for walks, moving around more, just sitting less. And we also need to incorporate strength training. I did a lot of research on how helpful it is for women to maintain their muscle mass. And that's not something I'd ever done before in my life. Like, I barely even picked up a dumbbell. I've done tons of cardio, but I'm not really, the strength training kind of girl. But after realizing how helpful it was, I wanted to do this. Here's the deal. Overall, I think my life is going to be far better because I'm focusing on getting stronger. I feel better about myself now that I've incorporated regular strength training. I did something that was hard, that was scary, and I'm actually doing it. We are now on, let me do the math, I think month 7, and I haven't skipped a workout. Like, it feels amazing. I also feel stronger. I think it's going to have great benefits on helping keep me as I age, helping keep me just active and able to carry about daily life longer. It helps keep your bones stronger. So overall, this is a great thing that I think ultimately is leading to less stress. However, in the short term, it was incredibly stressful. Very stressful. And to this day, 7 months in, it's a toss-up whether it removes as much stress as it adds to my life. Because, first of all, I had to figure out how to do this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. How do I weight train? I gotta go research. Where do I do this? I ended up signing up for a gym and getting a personal trainer there to help me, but I had to research that. I also, being very shy, I really hated those first couple experiences because it felt so unfamiliar to me. So I was almost dreading going into the gym and asking for a trainer. And I know this is ridiculous and silly because the trainers are there to help people like me who don't know what they're doing. But yet I was like, this is so embarrassing to be like, I'm 40 years old and I've never hardly lifted a weight in my life and I'm so out of shape, and like, I'm trying to lift this 3-pound weight 12 times and I'm really struggling. And like, it's embarrassing and it's stressful. And then in addition to the stress of like not knowing what I'm doing, going somewhere and doing something that felt very unfamiliar to me, it also adds to my schedule because this literally takes time. So every Tuesday and every Thursday at a certain time, I have to get in my car, drive to the gym, work out, drive back home. This is adding time and taking a good chunk of work time, which has caused some stress because it's not like I didn't have any other work I could be doing. I do the same thing on Saturdays. And so temporarily it's added stress. And this is just one example that's very concrete that I can give you, but there are so many others. Like, let's say that you're trying to implement a laundry routine, whereas before you only waited until your laundry was disastrous. Like, you waited 3 weeks to do laundry. Now, the deal is that ultimately, maybe doing a load every day is reducing your stress because you're never going to have that overwhelming mountain of laundry. You're not also going to remove the stress of like, I know this is coming. When is the day when we're going to run out of clean socks or my kids aren't going to have something to wear to school? Like, you're removing that stress, but at the same time, you're adding something to your schedule. And that does create short-term stress. It also creates stress because you have to face the thing. So before I started weight training, I obviously, if you'd come up to me and said, hey, Laura, do you think it's good? Are you happy with your current fitness level? I would have probably said no. I really think I should be resistance training and doing some other things. But I wasn't actively thinking about it. I was able to kind of compartmentalize and just not think about it. Once I started pursuing it, it forced me to think about it more often. Now I was really aware of how weak I was. I was really aware that, oh my goodness, like just lifting 3 pounds 12 times is like, I feel like my arm is gonna fall off. Like it was really, truly made me face those things. And the same would be true in the laundry example. Before, it was only about once or twice a month that you had to face the fact that laundry was a big problem. The rest of the time you could put it out of your mind. So when we start to make these changes, it can temporarily feel more stressful. And there is just, in my opinion, no way to completely avoid the stress. I think sometimes I get in my head in a negative way, thinking that if I'm feeling uncomfortable or stressed or worried or I don't want to do something, there's like a problem. And I've talked myself out of things that I think would have been really good for me, including starting this weight thing like 10 years ago, or starting some other things that would bring me peace. I actually resisted them because when it started to feel overwhelming and add stress and I felt like I didn't want to do them, I thought something was wrong and that meant that I shouldn't. Now, what I'm not saying is that you should ignore any and all feelings or that you should just pile on 12 new things today that truly do overwhelm you. You need to understand your circumstances. There's a time and a place to add something, and there's a time and a place where adding something wouldn't really be a good idea. But I don't think that we should be afraid of it feeling hard and stressful in the short term. And the hope is that in the long term, it's going to start to feel easier. And in my example now, I'm really familiar with the gym. I'm familiar with the trainer. I'm not so nervous every time I go. I know that she knows what my strength level is. I've already been able to see huge gains in strength that whereas before, when I would do something, one set of 12 with 3 pounds, I would be sore. Now I can do 3 sets of 12 with 8 pounds and I'm not even sore. So like we have made a really big amount of improvement and I'm not as nervous. It fits into my schedule better. I've naturally adjusted my schedule a little bit to have different expectations for the other things I can accomplish. I'm not saying that it's never stressful or that there's never a time when I'm like, I have 52 million things to do and I gotta go to the gym and waste an hour. It's not wasted, but you know what I mean. So I'm not saying that there's a time where it just gets effortless, but there are times where we need to push through it getting harder before it gets easier. And so maybe there's something in your life that you do need to do that with and stop seeing the temporary getting harder as a totally bad thing. That's actually probably a good thing, and that probably means that you're growing. For example, in the weight training analogy, if I never wanted to be sore at all, I don't think my muscles would grow. I have to be able to put up with them being a little bit sore, and I actually kind of like that feeling of not being in like dire pain where I feel like I can't even pick up, my water bottle, but of like, ooh, I can really tell that I worked. That stress on the muscles is what actually causes them to grow and get stronger. And the same is true in life. That little bit of stress will help you grow and get stronger and get to where you want to be. So I don't want this to be all about me. I want you to think about yourself and think about if there's something that falls in this category for you. So is there something that you've been putting off that you need to do, even if it's going to add a little bit of stress to your life in the short term? Go ahead. I'm curious. Let me know what that might be. And I think you're going to want to check out my mental health cleaning video next, where I show you how I clean to improve my mental health and help my stress levels.